This is the Army's Revision H ESAPI plate. This is a relatively new revision, and while it isn't the most modern plate issued out to the infantry, this particular revision is very commonly found and is in widespread use among the US military. To accompany it, I have an IOTV equipped with standard Kevlar soft armor backers. This plate and Kevlar combination are rated NIJ-4 spec against full-sized hardened steel core rifle threads and tungsten M993 5.56 rounds. Today we're going to test this armor against a small fortune's worth of relevant Eastern threats, including 9x39 AP, 7.62x39 API, and 5.45 AP rounds. Now I know what you're thinking. Oxide, where's the full-sized rifle thread? Please be quiet. Notably absent are Russian 7.62x54R tungsten 7N37 armor-piercing bullets. But I didn't want to wait on that threat to arrive, and am instead substituting a hotter 308 M993 Western-made tungsten round instead. Though I am lacking in this instance, I'm sure that my clout will remain intact. Taking a brief moment to talk about what we do have, the SB6 Chinese 7.62 API round and M993 came from the incredibly knowledgeable and thorough plate tester Buffman Range on YouTube. The Russian body armor and helmet series would have been impossible to complete without his specialty ammo contributions. His content features a myriad of commercial and military armor tests, and he served as the guideline and inspiration for these videos. His channel is severely underrated for the volume and quality of information it provides. I can't thank him enough. The PAB-9 and 5.45 7N22 AP rounds came from Flat Range Operator, another friend of mine who's an ammo collector and meme maker on YouTube. These 9x39 and 5.45 rounds are reloads, so it's a little difficult to figure out how well they'll do, so we brought a chronograph along. We've tried to reload them as close to military spec as possible, but just in case, we've brought along a longer barreled RPK rifle. Unfortunately, there isn't a fix like this for the 9x39 rounds, as we're using a actual VSS thread cutter. This VSS was built by the incredibly talented Zach Schaefer, who agreed to let me use the rifle so long as I brought my own ammo. The SB6 and PAB-9, nice, 9x39 rounds, are both very similar hardened steel core armor-piercing loads for the Vintorez. The PAB-9 uses a so-called stamped hardened steel core versus the SB6's machined core. That PAB-9 would wear down the weapons in a fashion to what I suspect would be similar to the Army's problems with the M855A1 bullet. It was also supposedly less accurate, and was redesigned and replaced by a new round that goes by BP. Some of these rounds can penetrate up to 8mm of steel, so they're not realistically expected to penetrate the ESAPI. I just want to see what they'll actually do, especially when you consider the tremendous size of their hardened steel penetrators. There really aren't bullets like this anywhere else. As far as the design specifications for this weapon system as a whole and why it exists, I had a lot of initial skepticism. I see a lot of the design basis speculation on the internet suggesting that it had to be a larger round to factor in the armor penetrating core to enable the penetration of Kevlar flak vests and helmets commonly used by NATO at the time of the thread cutter's development. However, even subsonic loaded 5.56 M855 can defeat 3A NIJ rated Kevlar, so that might not be the real reason why the Soviet thinkers went to all this trouble making what many consider to be a wasteful extra weapon system. Ultimately for me, this is one of those instances where I finally understood only when I had the weapon in my hands. The VSS is a lot lighter and smaller than you'd expect, with a really nice trigger. When you picture the appropriate rolls of an MP5 SD, or the standard MP5 submachine gun and substitute it with the Vintorez, the wisdom becomes very clear. It is ballistically far superior to that subgun in terms of range, stopping power, and penetration. It is perfectly capable of working lethally in close to medium range environments, while being virtually the same size as an MP5 SD. The 9x39 does what the weaker 9x19 round cannot, while its host is vastly more comfortable than the legacy PBS suppressor equipped AKMS it replaces. It's the best fit for quiet, close clandestine work, and only suffers from its antiquity, a valid excuse being a 1980s release. The first round we're going to shoot is the armor-piercing SB6 9x39 round. This round traveled pretty slow at 756 feet per second. This is around 200 feet per second slower than mil-spec, and represents a hit from about 500 meters. A real pity. Let's hit the armor again with Pab 9 before we get into the results. Perfect. 956 feet per second. This is the velocity I was looking for. Neither round has penetrated the plate, with no obvious deformation. This is honestly about what I expected, but it's a relief to see the plate perform consistently to spec and maintain its integrity after such a big impact, especially after the disastrous IHIPS test. Both rounds deflected upwards inside. Their huge hardened steel cores have shattered against the ceramic. We'll take the ESAPI apart once we're done hitting it to really examine the effects. Next is the Chinese 7.62x39 API round of an RPK.
Alright.
2,700 abouts. That's pretty darn fast for this round. The plate has deformed slightly, but not enough to be concerned. Next up is 5.45 7N22 hardened steel core. This round isn't as strong as other 5.45 AP rounds. However, there's tons of evidence that's still in use today on the front lines in Ukraine. There's absolutely no chance of this round penetrating, so I wanted to test the durability of the plate by shooting it in the exact same spot. I let Zach take the reins with his Russian 74M. Three shots consistently at 3000 FPS. Here we had some interesting results. The first round was stopped by the plate, but the second round penetrated and was stopped by the Kevlar before finally the third round went through. If anything, this is a strong case for that Kevlar backer. I've consistently seen Kevlar backers and panels save the day in the Russian playtests, and here we see the same effect with the IOTV's soft armor. The final kicker is the M993 tungsten 308 round. The only plate that has stopped this round without unacceptable deformation so far on this channel is the Russian Fort Technologies plate that was specifically made for Spetsnaz, and that was out of a 20-inch barrel. The ESAPI, unlike the XSAPI, is not rated to stop this round, but in Buffman's test with earlier Revision E ESAPIs, those plates managed to stop this round from a 12.5-inch barrel, although it failed a 16-inch hit. With those velocities considered, the ESAPI should also be able to stop the Russian tungsten 7N37 round, as according to this poster, it travels even slower than the 993 round that was fired out of the 12.5-inch barrel. However, again, we're shooting out of a 20-inch barrel, pushing the limits of the newer Revision H plate. No dice. But this is a pretty tough test, and only level 4 NIGA plates on the higher end of the spectrum are going to pass such an extreme test like this. No need to hit it with anything else. Despite the failure on the last impact, the Revision H proves that it already can stop every relevant Eastern Rifle threat out there. Buffman has done plenty of testing against early Revision ESAPI plates against Western full-sized rifle rounds as well, and these plates are all rated against 3.6 AP. Let's dissect the plate and see if we can learn anything from the damage. ESAPIs are composed of a ceramic layer that is surrounded by a thin layer of Dyneema polyethylene on the front with a thick backer of that same material on the rear. These plates don't typically deform much, even from higher energy hits. Interestingly, it seems that the 9x39 round penetrated slightly further into the polyethylene backer than the 7.62 API, although that API round did cause more deformation. We can also see that one of the 5.45 rounds left a much smaller hole as it passed through the ceramic, as the ceramic was compromised. It seems like the last round managed to penetrate through an existing hole completely unhindered by the ceramic. That round has to be the one that penetrated. Despite repeated hits to the ceramic, the monolithic plate is remarkably intact. It is uncompromised in many sections and could still prove life-saving, especially as evidenced by the Kevlar backer stopping the 5.45 AP round. This could be because of the Dyneema absorbing shock from impacts, though the ceramic might have some stronger bond keeping it together better than other plates I've seen. Though the impacts are really cratering this plate, the craters are controlled, Swiss cheese if you will. One thing's for sure, the ESAPI is much better than the Russian granite plate. So, The VSS isn't an armor-piercing wonder weapon after all, something that really isn't a surprise, at least to me. However, there is another weapon that has been largely absent from the conversation. The issue of 9x39 subsonic ammo is that it struggles at long ranges and won't penetrate armor, even up close as we've seen. But the Russians already know this. What about 12.7x55? What about the VKS? What about the Ash-12? The Vintorez isn't designed to defeat modern body armor. But what about those other subsonic 50 caliber weapons? I will try to answer those questions in a future video.